Good evening, councils. Good evening, council, staff, members of the public. May I have a mover and seconder to call the meeting to order, please? I have councillors Alexander and Garwood that the regular meeting of the Council of the Township of Springwater for June 4th, 2025 come to order at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? And that has carried. Please join me in the singing of O Canada. Councillor, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest this evening? And not seeing any. Before we do move on to our public meeting, I would like to welcome back our now Deputy CAO, Clerk Ainsworth, previously Clerk Ainsworth, now Director. And Council, I did text her this evening because there's many titles and Director Ainsworth is just fine. So welcome back and thank you for being here. May I have a mover and seconder to call the public meeting to order, please? I have Councillors Fisher and Moore that this public meeting held under section 4251.1 and 34 of the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP 13 as amended for Parkland dedication bylaw update and a zoning bylaw amendment ZB 2025-001 on behalf of the owners of the subject lands be called to order at 6:32 p.m. All those in favor? And that has carried. Welcome to this public meeting of Springwater Township Council held in section 34, 42, and 551.1 of the Planning Act to give the public an opportunity to express their views in regard to the proposed applications and amendments. The first part of this meeting is to present the proposal and applications or amendments. Following, the public will be given opportunity to make oral submissions through Zoom application or in person. Any person wishing to make oral submission is to have notified the township prior to 8:30 this morning and be added to the commenters list. If a person or public body who files an appeal of a decision of the Township of Springwater in respect to the Planning Act application does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or written submissions to the Township of Springwater before the proposed amendments are passed, the Ontario Land Tribunal may dismiss all or part of the appeal. Oral submissions will be included in this meeting's minutes and form part of the public record, including the name and address of the speaker as information collected under the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. The minutes of the meeting will be posted on the township website. I will now call upon the clerk to confirm notice of this meeting and dates to which notice was given.
Notice of this public meeting was published in the Springwater News on the 14th day of May, 2025, and circulated electronically or mailed to all persons and public bodies as prescribed under the Planning Act and its regulations. Notice was also posted on the township's website.
Has the planning department received any correspondence in response to the notice of the public meeting?
There's been one item of correspondence received for this application from Enbridge Gas in an email dated May 24th, 2025, and this can be found on tonight's agenda.
I will now call upon our senior planner to outline the purpose and effect of the bylaw update.
My name is Jennifer Staden, Senior Planner, and I will give a brief presentation on the Parkland Dedication Bylaw Review. Next slide, please. So the current Parkland dedication bylaw, 2019-066, was adopted by Council on September 4th, 2019. Recent legislative changes to the Planning Act require the township to update the Parkland dedication bylaw to maintain compliance. As well, flat benchmark rates for cash in lieu were determined back in 2016. Given the change in valuation of land since 2016, these benchmarks should be updated according to market conditions. Next slide, please. Quick overview of where we are in the process today. There was an information report that went to Council in April outlining the commencement of this review. Tonight, we're here at the public meeting, and a draft bylaw was drafted as part of this, reflecting required statutory changes. After this evening, staff will review any comments received through the public consultation process and prepare a recommendation report and final draft policies. And then we're hoping to report back in the fall with a recommendation report and a final bylaw for Council's consideration. Next slide, please. So we all probably know what parkland dedication is, but a quick overview. The Planning Act allows planning authorities to ask for land dedication or cash in lieu as part of subdivision of land. And this can look like a plan of subdivision application or through a severance or consent application. As well, planning authorities can ask for parkland dedication through development or redevelopment of land through a site plan application. In a residential plan of subdivision, Planning Act allows 5% of physical land to be dedicated. Where physical land cannot be dedicated, or perhaps it's not an ideal location or to the satisfaction of the township can accept cash instead. And this is done based on an appraisal of land that the developer would undertake at that time. Next slide, please. When a single lot is created through a consent or severance, it doesn't make much sense for us to take tiny little parcels of parkland from those parcels. So typically the township accepts cash in lieu. A township-wide appraisal was completed by Andrew Thompson and Associates in 2016 to determine a benchmark valuation of land. This was so that individual owners, when they were going through a consent, didn't have to go out and get their own appraisal report done. They could refer to these benchmark values, and the amount of cash in lieu could be determined based on that. Based on the market evidence at that time, vacant lot land valuations were determined. These ranged from $85,000 for unserviced small rural lots up to $225,000 per lot. And these values informed Schedule H of our fees and charges bylaw. Next slide, please. This is an excerpt from the benchmark lot valuation report done by Andrew Thompson and Associates. You can see that the lot valuations categorize based on size, servicing, and location, whether or not the lot is urban or rural. And we know valuations of land have changed since 2016. And therefore, we ask Council to provide staff direction to move forward with engaging Andrew Thompson and Associates or another like firm for an updated report. Having updated benchmark values, while it is only a snapshot in time, at the time the report is done, it makes it far less onerous for individual owners going through the consent process to have to complete a land appraisal report for their individual property. Next slide, please. This is an excerpt from the fees and charges bylaw. So the lot values that were reflected on the previous slide informed these fees on this page. And next slide, please. A quick summary of the Planning Act changes that have happened in the past few years. So the rates for land, the 2% for industrial or commercial land and 5% for residential or other land, those have remained unchanged. However, the alternative rate has changed. It is rare that we exercise the alternative rate, but we should still be including it in our bylaw. This typically comes into play with higher densities, and that Planning Act change went from 1 hectare per 300 units to 1 hectare per 600 units. And then there are some maximums there. Next slide, please. Other minor Planning Act changes that we are required to maintain compliance to. There was the addition of maximums for affordable and attainable units. The nonprofit housing was exempted. The date for calculating dedication was moved up. And municipalities are now required to spend or allocate 60% of the monies in their special account annually. Next slide, please. While we are reviewing the bylaw, there's also some minor housekeeping revisions that we may want to consider at this time. So the first being the differentiating between net area and gross area. Currently, we calculate parkland dedication based on gross area, but it's not clear in our bylaw. A lot of municipalities typically refer on gross area, but we think that if we refine the wording a bit in the bylaw, that could tighten that up. As well, clearly defining acceptable lands to align with the township's needs. So ensuring that the township maintains discretion with respect to size, configuration, and location of park space that's dedicated. And next slide, please. So that concludes the presentation. The next steps include gathering feedback from the public and council tonight on the drafted bylaw and the presentation. And then council to decide to direct staff, whether Andrew Thompson and Associates, to prepare an updated benchmark lot valuation report with updated values, potential policy revisions to the bylaw, and then a recommendation report will be submitted to council, addressing comments, and eventually, if council decides to, or consideration of bylaw to repeal and replace the current parkland dedication bylaw, as well as update Schedule H of the fees and charges bylaw. And that concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for the presentation. I will now call upon the moderator to provide the number of people who have registered to ask questions or make comments during the application.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. There have been no members of the public who have registered to make an oral submission.
Thank you. I'll now turn to members of the public if there's anyone who has any comments or questions. Not seeing any. I'll turn to council for any comments or questions. Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, and thanks very much for the presentation. Just a question with respect to the exemptions here. So for Parkland, that doesn't apply to those exemptions like nonprofit housing. So if you had a nonprofit housing that was going to be all nonprofit, like some of the facilities and some of the locations we have in the city of Toronto, would they not be required to provide dedicated parkland? Is that my understanding, or is that just an exemption that's also been brought forward?
Senior Planner Staden.
Through the chair to Deputy Mayor, I'm not sure I understand the difference of the two you outlined.
I'll go for clarification from Deputy Cabral.
Well, it says Planning Act changes other, and it says exempted nonprofit housing. So I'm wondering, is it exempted non-profit housing for the financial aspect of the DCs and that type of thing, or does it also include the percentage for parkland dedication?
So through the chair to Deputy Mayor, it should just pertain to parkland dedication. Nonprofit housing would be defined as per the Development Charges Act, but we're only talking about the parkland dedication requirement.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further, council? Comments, questions, clarification? Not seeing any. Thank you for the presentation, and thank you to all who participated in the public meeting with respect to the proposed Parkland dedication bylaw update and for showing an interest in this matter. We will now move on to ZB 2025-001, which is 1446 Floss Road 4 East, and I will call upon the clerk to confirm notice of this meeting and dates to which notice was given.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Notice of this public meeting was mailed on the 14th day of May, 2025, to the owner of the subject lands and to the assessed owners of 14 properties in the Township of Springwater within 240 meters of the area to which the proposed amendment would apply, and to all persons and public bodies as prescribed under the Planning Act and its regulations. Notice was posted at the assessed property to which the proposed amendment applies at a location visible from Floss Road 4 East. Notice was also posted on the township's website.
Has the planning department received any correspondence in response to the notice of public meeting?
There have been 2 items of correspondence received for this application. Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority in an email dated May 16th, 2025, and Enbridge Gas in an email dated May 24th, 2025. These pieces of correspondence can be found on tonight's agenda.
Thank you. I will now call upon Planscape to outline the purpose and effect of the zoning bylaw amendment.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Oh, sorry. Am I raring to go? I missed just when I was joining in. Can I go now?
Yes, please.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of council. My name is Stefan Scherbach. I am a planner with the planning firm Planscape Inc. and our mailing address is 104 Kimberley Avenue in Bracebridge, P1L 1Z8. I'm here tonight representing the Dunn family. I understand Sharon and John Dunn are online monitoring the meeting. I've reviewed the staff report in front of you and agree with their thorough planning review. The application is essentially a condition of consent application B0125 that was approved by your Committee of Adjustment in March of this year. The purpose basically is just is severance application to carve off an existing surplus farm dwelling. And the rezoning application is there to rezone the larger retained parcel to prevent the construction of a future dwelling. This is a standard condition to ensure the severance follows the intent of your official plan, as well as the applicable policies contained within the county and provincial planning documents. Basically, to keep this short, in my professional planning opinion, which is shared by staff in the report, the rezoning application in front of you this evening and the bylaw before you is consistent with the relevant planning documents, including the provincial planning statement, the county official plan, and the local official plans, and it represents good planning. I would respectfully request council's consideration and support of the bylaw in front of you, and happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now call on the moderator to provide the number of people who have registered to ask questions or make comments.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. There have been no members of the public who have registered to make an oral submission for this application.
At this time, I'll turn to members of the public if there's anyone who has comment or question on this application. Not seeing any, I will turn to council. Not seeing any from council. Thank you to all who participated in the public meeting for respect to the proposed ZB 2025-001 1446 Floss Road 4 East application for showing an interest in the matter. May I have a mover and seconder to adjourn the public meeting, please? I have Councillors Fisher and Moore. That this public meeting of council held under section 344251.1 of the Planning Act for Parkland dedication bylaw update and ZB 2025-001 1446 Floss Road East does now adjourn at 6:49 p.m. All those in favor? And that has carried. Council, may I have a mover and seconder for the direction following the public meeting? Deputy Cabral and Councillor Alexander, that council having had held a public meeting in accordance with section 42 and 51.1 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 CP 13, as amended for Parkland dedication bylaw update, having noted correspondence in received, direct that the application be referred back to staff. Are there any further comments or questions? All those in favor? And that has carried. And a mover and seconder for our ZB 2025-001. Councilors Fisher and Moore, that the report from the planner regarding ZB 2025-001 dated June 4th, 2025 be received, and that bylaw 5407 be presented to council for consideration and approval on the June 4th, 2025, subject to comments received at the public meeting. Any questions or comments on that? All those in favor? And that has carried. We will now move on to our deputations and presentations, and I will call upon WSP to present. Evening and welcome.
Good evening. The mic on?
Can
You guys hear me?
yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, good evening, Madam Mayor Coughlin and members of council. My name is Frank Marzo, Manager of Urban and Community Planning with WSP. I'm here tonight to provide you with a brief presentation on the Growth Management Strategy Study Update, Stage 1, primarily the background work completed to date, and how our initial assessment of growth in spring water can position our team for in-depth analysis for where and how spring water will grow over the next 30 years. Next slide, please. So this is an overview of our team. With me tonight, I have Kamal Kaptanovich, also with WSP, and we're also working with Watson and Associates on the land needs assessment. Next slide, please. So this is an overall project timeline of where we've been, where we are, and where we're headed. So in the winter of this year, from January until March, we completed a background report and the identification of our focus areas for potential growth. And tonight we're here for an update to you in terms of where we've been with that background material and where we're headed in terms of identifying some focus areas for growth. We'll continue on through the summer months for a land needs assessment, working with Watson to identify the quantum of land needed for potential growth if possible. In the fall, we'll come back for stakeholder engagement and public meeting, and then a recommendation for the growth scenario in October and November, and then a final presentation and recommendation to council. Next slide, please. So what work has been done in the past and sort of what have we evaluated over the last couple of months in terms of our background work? So in 2018, there was the growth management strategy that concluded that Springwater had sufficient land to grow to accommodate population and employment growth to 2031. In 2021, a population-related employment land market study was done that concluded that Midhurst and Elmville provided an adequate supply of population-related employment, or PRE, lands to 2031. This study cannot definitively comment on the population growth and build out beyond this time horizon. In 2021, an intensification strategy, as we all know, was concluded that Midhurst represents a logical location for intensification in the township. The report also found that the Bayfield corridor is of particular interest for future intensification initiatives and confirmed that an intensification target of 15% was in fact appropriate. In 2021, there was also the Bayfield Street Corridor Study, which provided direction and guidance for intensification along the Bayfield Corridor, which is informed through the 2021 intensification strategy. It identified a vision for the Bayfield Corridor to develop into a focal point for Midhurst. This resulted in approximately 1,800 residential new units, 3,400 persons, and 42,000 square meters of new retail and commercial space, with a potential for almost 700 new jobs. Next slide, please. So what are some of the project drivers that are driving this new growth management strategy in 2025 that we're conducting? Well, since the adoption of Springwater's new official plan in 2023, there have been several key changes to the provincial planning framework. Bill 97, as some are aware, creates a new definition for an area of employment, which narrows the scope of uses that are permitted in these areas. This definition change creates the need to review Springwater's existing employment areas. The new provincial planning statement was also released in 2024, which deals with the settlement area boundary expansions and employment land conversions, which can now occur at any time. Population and employment growth forecasts will also be based on the Ministry of Finance projections as opposed to the previous growth plan. And finally, planning authorities are allowed to plan beyond a 30-year horizon for infrastructure and employment lands. Next slide, please. So further project drivers for us. So what was the response to the February 5th, 2025 Council resolution? At its regular meeting on February 5th, 2025, Springwater Council, for those that aren't aware, passed a notice of motion to report back with information about the planning processes necessary to consider an expansion to the Midhurst secondary plan area to include lands around the 400 corridor. To also report back regarding the provincially significant employment zones, or PZs as they were formerly known as, and if there's a successor program to that, and report back with the confirmed capacity of the ultimate treatment facility, and direct WSP and our team to prioritize the initial focus of the growth management strategy to include the Midhurst settlement area expansion to Highway 400. In response to this notice, staff are preparing the following responses, or had prepared the following responses: that the expansion of the Midhurst settlement area can be considered through a local official plan amendment, provided the need for land is demonstrated and all provincial policy criteria are met. The provincially significant employment zones, PZs, have now been repealed with no successor program planned. Servicing capacity beyond the current Midhurst secondary plan area would require a phase 3 upgrade to the treatment plant. And phase 2 upgrades are planned for 2031 to 33. The design capacity and cost of this phase upgrade are unknown at this time. In response to council direction, WSP has focused its initial analysis on the Midhurst settlement area and identified study areas for potential expansion lands east and south of the current boundaries, which I'll get into shortly. Next slide, please. So our background report and some of our key directions. We reviewed recent provincial policy changes, as I said earlier, the Simcoe County MCR and the Hampson Joint Land Needs Analysis and Study from December 2024. This will inform subsequent analysis, given that this is just an update, that subsequent analysis that will consider the labor force trends, employment growth, and the township's long-term employment land needs. As we know, in August 2022, the County of Simcoe adopted the official plan amendment number 7, or as we know it as Scopa 7. This is not yet approved by MMH, and we're still awaiting their decision. The amendment included updates to the growth management policies to align with the growth plan and the PPS. The county is forecast to add 194,000 residents to 2051, and the county is forecast to add 81,000 jobs, with a total of 10,170 residents and 2,490 jobs allocated to Springwater by 2051. However, Scopa 7 forecasts do not align with previous forecasts that have been produced for the township, including the 2018 Growth Management Strategy, the 2021 Long-Term Fiscal Impact Assessment, and a 2023 DC background study. The current work that we're undertaking with our team will seek to consolidate the existing forecast numbers in order to develop an accurate assessment and future long-term residential and employment land needs. Specific to the employment land area, as part of the GMS, we are reviewing the township's existing employment land base, and lands that are currently designated for employment uses but not feasible for development due to natural heritage constraints will not be counted as part of the township's employment lands. This evaluation is part of the land needs assessment and will allow the township to better understand if more developable employment lands need to be added to the settlement areas. Next slide, please. So this just shows you a snapshot of the focused areas that we're currently suggesting maybe expand the settlement area for Midhurst, study area 1 being a more residential focus, and study area 2 being more an employment focus. The study areas were selected to align with the township's strategic priorities and general planning principles. The land needs assessment is still need to be conducted and needed to determine the quantity of land, if any, that is warranted for a settlement area boundary expansion. This LNA is currently underway by our consultant team at Watson and will be completed in the coming months as part of the overall study work. Next slide, please. This is, as I indicated, study area focus area 2, which is east of Midhurst around Highway 400. The potential location for future employment area leverages access to the 400 as a major goods movement corridor for employment area uses, including manufacturing, warehousing, and goods movements. Servicing would be required long-term, which upgrades would need to be had to the Midhurst wastewater treatment facility. The design, capacity, and cost of potential Phase 3 upgrades are also unknown at this time. Study Area 2 is well positioned to take advantage of the highway ramp at Forbes Road and provide businesses with access to a major goods movement corridor. Next slide, please. So in closing, next steps. Well, the study areas identified on the previous maps will be evaluated against provincial criteria and mapping related to the protection of prime agricultural areas, provincial and regional natural heritage system mapping, and minimum distance separation formulae. The residential employment land needs assessment will determine if there's an actual justifiable need for expansion to these areas, and these are our best guess estimates of where expansion could go should it be warranted. And as I identified, there are still servicing constraints, and we'll look to potential solutions as we move forward with the study. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. At this time, I will have a mover and seconder to receive the presentation, and then we'll have the comments and questions. Just a mover and seconder on the table. Councilors Garwood and Alexander, that the presentation from WSP regarding the growth management study be received. And I can turn to members of council for comments and questions. Councilor Moore.
And thank you, Mr. Marzo, for the presentation. I was waiting anxiously for your report, and I was really pleased in what I read too. And I think additionally, I look forward to the next steps that will help to clarify our future, hopefully. But secondly, I'm glad that you highlighted the inconsistencies in some of the work that was done previously at different levels, because they are conflicting and confusing. And so I understand from what you said, you're going to assimilate all of that and come up with a more accurate forecast. So I'm anxiously waiting that too. Thank you.
Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Cottle. Thank you for the presentation. One of the pieces there that you were going to be assessing is, I take it as a bit of a buffer between certain areas or delineations between certain employment lands or residential lands, or is that a delineation between boundaries?
Through the chair to the deputy, sir, can you clarify the question?
Yeah, it speaks in your presentation with regards to, I guess, some kind of a buffer or an area that I guess wouldn't be considered outside of the Midhurst secondary plan. I don't know if you remember what slide it was on. It was in respect of when you're going to be doing your assessment on the employment land needs. Is there going to be a buffer area that we would be considering there, say up on the 400 corridor? Because we have to take into consideration the agricultural lands too. So it wouldn't be all of it. It would be a certain part that you would be looking at that would be appropriate for employment and employment lands there. Is that what I should take that to mean then?
Through the chair to the deputy, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. One more question.
Deputy Cabral.
Yes, thank you very much. Knowing that the Midhurst secondary plan is ongoing and the number of houses that are going in, I was just a little bit curious on where the increase in population, to my way of thinking, seemed a little bit low. Have those been taken into consideration, or are you basing your increase in population after those numbers were taken into consideration? Like the build out of the Midhurst secondary plan as it already is taking shape right now?
Through the chair to the deputy, yes, the full build out of the Midhurst secondary plan is already underway. The other area would be an expansion to the settlement area boundary.
So that would
to
be
the south.
additional numbers then
Potentially.
with
Should-
respect
again,
to
could
the
be an
expansion
outlet,
area? Okay, thank
taken
you.
as a need.
Thank you.
So we were at this stage just evaluating that that could be a potential location.
Right.
Should it be determined that the full build out of the Midhurst secondary plan can handle the additional population. So if there's an extra area required, that would be considered as a shift south.
Perfect. And I can go on hold if somebody else wants to ask a question.
Are there any comments or questions? Councillor Moore?
Sorry, thank you. I was just quickly, when you spoke about not being sure or the costs of the infrastructure being unknown at this stage, or sort of what the wastewater treatment facility next phase costs would look like, and how are you going to determine that? Will you be reaching out to the Midhurst landowners group to ask them for their input and their consultants' reports, for instance?
Through the chair to the council, yes, we'll take into consideration all the available information that we can get. And it's my understanding from staff that the current upgrades to the servicing only go so far to take into consideration some of the planned growth to this point, but the additional work being done to the growth management strategy, should there be additional lands needed in those employment areas, we would have to take under advisement through the work being done by Watson as well as the landowners group.
Back to Deputy Carell.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. And on that point, when you spoke about the ultimate treatment plant and unknown amounts, unknown figures, I just was curious on the agenda a little bit later on, there are some reports from the Midhurst landowners group that do speak to those. And I'm just curious whether or not, if you were aware they were on here, that they're public documents now, if they might be of use to you in assessing or finding out what kind of capacities might be available and what the costs might be. There were some figures in there that alluded to that. So I'm just suggesting that that might be something that you might find quite useful going forward. And my understanding is that there may be additional documents coming forth that aren't on our agenda tonight that you may also find quite useful. I don't know whether or not, well, I guess that would be something that could be looked at down the road, but hopefully you will take advantage of those documents too. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do see Director Brussels here.
Thank you. Just to clarify that to the Deputy Mayor, we have already sent those documents from MLG to WSP to incorporate as part of their work through the GMS. Thank you.
Not seeing anything further at this time. Thank you very much for the update. Council, we do have a mover and seconder that the presentation from WSP regarding the growth management study be received. All those in favor? And that has carried. We'll now move on to our question period, and I will turn to Clerk Marshall to have any questions received.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. There have been 3 question periods submitted for this evening. The first one being Mr. Mike Harris, if you want to come forward.
Evening, if I can have state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Mike Harris, live at 12 Hitherwood Drive in Midhurst. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for hosting this. My issue, it's less of a question, more of a statement. My issue is with our transportation master plan for all of Springwater. The transportation master plan affects everyone in every aspect of their life: safety, commute to work, buying groceries, emergency responders, private and public finances, movement of goods, our local economy, our health, crime rate, social and community connection, quality of life. It even affects people that aren't even on this planet yet as we go into 2041. I believe using a single contractor to shape our entire community is wrong. There's no criminology involved. There's no first responders perspective. There's no active transportation consultation. There's no change. No change like our future version of Bayfield Street, for example. The Bayfield Street disastrous monstrosity that was built 45 years ago on a philosophy 65 years old. How has everything on this planet changed, including the planet itself, in 65 years, yet we think our design of transportation infrastructure has no need to change? Our vehicles are more dangerous now to others around them. They are more numerous, and our drivers are more distracted. Another example, is that we solely based our decision not to put active transportation on our Bayfield corridor because Strata data says there's not enough bike traffic to warrant it. That makes no sense. That is the same as saying we should not extend Carson to St. Vincent because there's not enough cars driving through the swamp currently to warrant it. Of course, there are not enough traffic if there's no infrastructure. It's the most dangerous street, most busiest street in our entire community. I know you want to be seen as getting stuff done, and I appreciate that. It looks well to myself and other constituents, but we are going way too fast on something that is so important. You are all grossly underestimating the importance of the Transportation Master Plan. This total redesign is a blessing, a chance to make a big change. There are so many different examples out there, different municipalities that we can reach from and take what they did right and what they did wrong. None of us, I believe, have reached out to any of these communities. This is going way too fast. You're not taking advantage of a modern approach to Transportation Master Plan. Almost done. How am I for time?
About 20 seconds.
I don't want to blame the engineers and planners because they will work in the parameters that you councillors will give them. It is up to you councillors to take the lead on this and make change. You all don't have the glamour or the paychecks of our federal municipal counterparts, but you have the ears closest to the people. You make the biggest change to our lives. I want you all to consider this and not do the easiest thing, but do the right thing. Reach out to the resources available and make a change and not continue on the wrong path with our transportation infrastructure. Now I'm done.
Thank you. And thank you for continuing to work with our staff.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
And I will turn back to our clerk for our second registered.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Our second question period submission is Tim Orr.
Evening, Mr. Orr, just your name and address for the record, please.
Name's Tim Orr. Address is 4 McGowan Place in Midhurst, Ontario. Thank you for your time, Madam Councillor and Madam Mayor and Council. We've currently formed a group known as Linwood Community. We're affected by the Rose Corp development and the water. That's the 60% part of the pipe. In short, I'd like to ask council to reconsider their decision made in December of 2023 to adopt option 2, the drainage course drop to Gill Road, both 60% and to the 40%. I have a petition currently online, probably 200 names strong. I've spent some time in the community. We have approximately 30 residents in this area that will be directly affected. We are all co-owners of a 33-acre piece of property that year 60% water from the current drainage position will be affecting directly. We're not in denial that we would currently get some of the water from those fields, but with the Midhurst secondary plan and the large amount of water that will be faced coming down those pipes, we are fearful for our lands and the damage that could be caused both to our private property and potential to water sources, springs, and to the CP rail line that goes through our area. This is an Ontario-wide issue, not a local issue. I'd like to present that petition to you regarding 30 owners, if I could do so at this time.
Okay, I would just ask if you could hand that to Director Ainsworth for us.
Currently, there's 20 new of these retaining ponds in Ontario in the past 5 years. Currently, Gill Road is the only one that does not go to a direct water source. we would like to know why we are the unicorn within Ontario as far as these plans. That's question.
I do thank you for your presentation or your question. I do know that there was a previous direction to staff to come back with a fulsome report. So I'm hopefully there's a more fulsome discussion at the council table once we do receive that report from staff.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I'll turn now to the clerk for our third.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. The third submission was submitted in writing, and it was requested that I read it on their behalf. So this is from John Spring of 2438 County Road 92. Why does it appear that the mayor and at least one other member of council want to give up Springwater land for a less than adequate remuneration from the city of Barrie? They must know that the majority of Springwater residents oppose annexation of Springwater land in any form.
Thank you. And I will continue to be in contact with Mr. Spring. That is now part of the public record. At this time, I can turn to members of the public for any comments or questions. Please come forward. And not seeing any, we'll move on to our minutes. May I have a mover and seconder to approve the minutes of council, please? I have Councillor Garwood. Councillor Moore, that the minutes of council listed herein be approved as presented. The minutes of the regular meeting of council of May 21st, 2025, the minutes of the special meeting of council, May 21st, 2025, the minutes of the special meeting of council of closed session, May 21st, 2025. Councillor, are there any comments or questions on these minutes? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Carried. And boards and committees, a mover and seconder, please. Councillor Moore and Councillor Garwood, that the minutes of the boards and committees and organizations listed herein be received as information. We have the minutes from the Growth Economic Viability Ad Hoc Committee meeting of September 11th, 2024, the minutes of the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority meeting of April 25th, 2025, the minutes of the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority meeting of May 23rd, 2025. Councillor, are there any comments or questions on these minutes? All those in favor? And that has carried. We will now move on to correspondence received, and I will just look to see if both of our attendees are present. And they are. So my apologies, not quite there yet, but so this is correspondence from Councillor Moore. May I have a seconder for this, please? Councillor Alexander, and I will turn to Councillor, I guess this is a notice of motion, so I can read it, but that correspondence from the Midhurst Landowners Group dated May 15th, 2025 regarding response to council resolution dated February 5th, 2025, future residential, community and employment lands in Springwater be received as information. And I will turn to Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I had asked to have these documents placed on the agenda the week before our meeting back May 15th. And they weren't placed on the agenda. And I'm not sure if, anyway, I don't want to muddy the waters, but I asked for it to be pulled out of the council information package and placed on this agenda because I think it's so critically important to the future of our township. And what it speaks to is the resolution passed and that they're in full support of the potential expansion of the Midhurst secondary plan and have included multiple reports, certainly reputable sort of planning opinions, economic benefits, wastewater servicing assessment, capacity studies, etc. And I thought it was important to have it more public and more transparent and have the public certainly an opportunity to read it themselves and ask questions. So that's why I've asked for it to be there.
Any further comments or questions? Deputy Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I mean, we've enjoyed a very productive partnership for years and years, and they have been extremely generous during the course of their developments, bringing high-quality homes to Springwater for our residents. These documents, as well as their letter of support from the Midhurst Landowners Group, show a dedication and a willingness to work with Springwater Township in promoting Springwater's overall integrity. It strikes me that there may be some form of a bias from time to time where some things get on the agenda and some things do not. I think at some point in time, that's going to have to be addressed, because the way I look at this is it's one thing to receive information and documents regarding this. Basically, I'm going to call it for what it is, the most historic event that's happened in Springwater Township, where we're looking at annexation and a boundary adjustment. As a matter of fact, I go one step further to say that this council should be seeking out any document that would help us to make a good decision at the end of the day. So I find it a little bit strange that on one hand, documents end up on our agenda, and then another document, which out of the goodness of their hearts, really, these things aren't free. They're putting it together, that addresses the concerns of wastewater and the ultimate treatment plant and what its potential capacities are. So I just want to know why these particular documents, for whatever reason, especially since Councillor Moore asked for them to be on the agenda, weren't there. I don't know whether it's a problem with the process or whether the council information package is not the proper venue for information that comes to Springwater Township, because it puts council members in an awkward position of having to wait an additional 2 weeks sometimes in order to get something from the council information package onto the agenda. And I'll be quite frank with you, most folks might look at the agenda, but I'll say that most people do not pay any attention at all to the council information package, except the folks that sit at this table, and ask for them to be put on the agenda. And that was a change that took place a number of years ago. I'm starting to think that maybe that should be reconsidered and go back to the way it used to be, where correspondence that came into the municipality was placed on the agenda, where, you know, everybody would have the opportunity to see it. So I'm struggling with that a little bit, that it took 2 weeks to get this back onto the agenda. And like I say, I think for us as council members in Springwater Township, if there's any information out there that would be useful to us and data-driven, you know, based in logic and with you know, good research in behind it, we not only should receive it, but we should be actually looking for it. And if it's out there, we should be garnering it so that down the road we can make a proper decision. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will now turn to the clerk to to ask when this letter formed part of our council information package, please.
Thank you, Mayor Cogland. This item was on the May 16th council information package. And just a little bit about the process. It is outlined within our procedural bylaw. So when an item of correspondence comes into the mayor and council, it does get placed on the subsequent council information package that goes out to the public every Friday. There is a process outlined there that allows for a council member to pull that item for the next council agenda. So if there was some sort of miscommunication and it was an understanding that this would be on the last agenda, I apologize. That wasn't, that I was just following this process. If there is a desire to change that process, it would require kind of relooking at our procedural bylaw and updating that if that was the desire of council.
Follow on, please.
Follow on, and then Councillor Moore.
Thank you. I just also looked at dates on 2 other documents that came to council, and I found that one document which showed up on Tuesday made it onto the agenda and another document did not. So I guess my question once again is, why does one fit the criteria but the other one does not?
Clerk Marshall?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. So yeah, you are correct. There is an item of correspondence, actually the next item, 9.2, correspondence from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing regarding the facilitation process that came into I believe the mayor directly on June 2nd and did get on this agenda. So just going to the Municipal Act, understanding that strong mayor powers is very, very new to us, I will kind of outline that section that applies. So there's a section in the Municipal Act under strong mayor powers, that section 284.10, and it reads, despite any procedure bylaw passed by the municipality, If the head of council is of the opinion that considering a particular matter could potentially advance a prescribed provincial priority, the head of council may require the council to consider the matter at a meeting. And I will allow the mayor to then, apologies, further explain why she felt that section applied to this piece of correspondence.
Thank you. And as it's been made clear in previous meetings, council made it clear that any information or correspondence regarding the communications with the city of Barrie were to be made available to members of the public. It was my discretion to put it on this agenda. Should this had not formed part of our agenda and it formed part of the media, as this did go to the other parties involved in this, I felt it would be more appropriate for us to have it on our agenda for our public so that they didn't find out about it through social media or on the news. That's why it made this part of our agenda. I, Councillor Moore, and the Councillor Alexander.
Thank you, Member Coughlin. So I just want to be clear then. The correspondence we received on May the 15th, you didn't have anything to do with that not being placed on the agenda. I will go to Clerk Marshall to ask if, because when I spoke to you, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot like this, but when I spoke to you at 2:58, I asked you to please make sure the documents were put on the agenda. They were coming. And you said, yes, no problem. And then the agenda got published at 3:22. So 25 minutes later, the agenda got posted without the documents. And then the documents did come in within another half an hour. So I want to ask you, and if it was your mistake, that's fine. But was there any interference?
Clerk Marshall?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Again, apologies if there was some sort of miscommunication regarding the Midhurst Landowners Group correspondence that came in right at the time that the agenda was being published. I was just following the process as I usually would, placing correspondence on the subsequent CIP. If you are asking if I had conversations with the mayor, is that? No.
Councillor Alexander.
Okay, so I appreciate Mayor Coughlin, you putting the information from the facilitation process on the agenda. I think it's important. To your point, it goes out there. It's for everybody to see. I think we've all kind of stated the importance of this issue coming before us and us being transparent about it. My concern is at essentially the same time on June 2nd, we received another package from the Midhurst Landowners Group with subsequent information asking it to be put on the agenda, and that didn't get put on the agenda. And I understand it's not directly from the facilitator. However, it is a very clear option for this council to move forward. And I feel by not putting it on the agenda, we're not being transparent.
And I think the conversation here needs to be the accusations that I'm interfering with information for this council or this public. Simply make it so there's no more CIP. This information went on the CIP. This information from the landowners group was received after an agenda was published. And now we're sitting here being accused that the clerk and myself interfered with information pertinent to this. The information went on the CIP in May. Not one member of council pulled it or asked it to be put on an agenda. Not just me. After it was on the 13th to be put on the next agenda. I think that whatever this is, if you want to, I did not interfere with any information coming from the Midhurst Landowners Group to be put on this agenda. Secondly, make it so that correspondence is received. Any correspondence that received for anyone, it becomes pertinent to council as to whether council wants it to be formed as part of the agenda. If you would rather just have all council minutes, which I think that was our first term, is how it was in that time, then just simply have it that way. Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. With respect to what's on here, it was asked to be on there. It went on the council information package. You are correct. And someone did ask to have it put on this agenda. And that person was Councillor Moore. That's why it's on the agenda. What I'm struggling with is where something is important because it's going to be public at another municipality. So does that make it better that we're the ones who make it public first? So all I'm saying is that letter from the provincial facilitator is important, very important. However, the information that we got also on Tuesday from the landowners group, it could have just as easily, under the same circumstances, be added to this agenda. And I think that's what I'm struggling with a little bit there. You've expressed your logic behind it, but at the same time, because it deals specifically with the boundary adjustment and annexation and plays right into the whole research bit to make a logical decision down the road, I see this, the value is intrinsically the same for both documents. So to say that strong mayor powers apply over here on this particular document, but they don't apply on another document that impacts this situation in exactly the same fashion, I do struggle with that. So that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
You know, when correspondence is received from whether it's a landowner, whether it's another municipality, and at the bottom of it says, please put this on your agenda, our policy in this township is to put it on the CIP. There was not stepping outside of that process. I did choose to make the letter from the province to us on this agenda. Anything further on this correspondence? I have moved in second. All those in favor? And that has carried. We now move on to item 9.2, correspondence from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Office of the Provincial Land Facilitator regarding the facilitated process dated June 2nd, 2025. May I have a mover and seconder for this correspondence item, please? Councillor Alexander and Councillor Garwood, that correspondence from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Office of the Provincial Land and Development Facilitator regarding facilitation process dated June 2nd, 2025 be received for information. I will now turn to the clerk to determine if both can be moved up. Okay. With us this evening, we have Mr. Matheson, and I will ask Mr. Matheson to be moved up. And good evening, Mr. Matheson. I have counsel here. Thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure, Your Worship. I apologize. I'm driving back from Toronto and traffic has been great. Haven't returned home, so I'm on the side of the road. I'll promise I'll be quiet and keep it muted when I'm not speaking.
Thank you. At this time, I can turn to members of council for any questions regarding the correspondence received. Councillor Alexander.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. So I do have a question for Mr. Schilling. When we were speaking about the facilitated process, my assumption would be that the province is taking into consideration the regional market area approach, including the work that this council has commissioned around the expansion to the Midhurst secondary plant. If the provincial goals can be met with a regional approach, I personally struggle to see the value of a land annexation. My question, Mr. Schilling, is can you confirm that during the facilitated process, the province is committed to looking at the whole picture and not just simply annexation?
Thank you. And Mr. Schilling's not with us this evening, so I will defer to Mr. Matheson.
Yes, the province is committed. This process started in June of 2024. And in August of 2024, Hemson was retained to start working on the study in question. We have been working with them on that data. Now that we've defined some of the area, we do plan on working further along this area, and any new information that comes forward will be considered. We did have correspondence received today from the Landowners Association, which we have worked to facilitate a meeting with them in the next week. So we are going to make sure that we gather all the information possible as we look at solutions to this matter.
Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, and through you to Mr. Matheson. Similar to Councillor Alexander's comments there, with respect to the Hemson report of last winter or the end of 2024 when it was released. When I read the letter from Mr. Schilling, what I gathered from that is it seems to be speaking mostly with respect to an annexation piece or a boundary adjustment piece. And there were two options in the Hemson report, and I guess my question is pretty straightforward, is both of them indicated two outcomes based on what the needs were going to be. One was a land going to the city of Barrie, and the other one was no boundary adjustment and looking to meet the provincial priorities for employment and housing, all of those things within each municipality. I guess my question is, since there's been additional information that we found out about the last little while that, might negate the fact that cross-border servicing was something that was desirable in the past, I guess my question would be, are we still looking at the two potential outcomes, or are we zeroing in or focusing on one or the other?
We have not chosen a considered path, but that's the importance of our dialogue going forward and having all groups at the table and continuing to acquire new information that comes available from different sources, so that when we do make a determination or a recommendation to the minister and the minister considers it, that we have been able to provide him all relevant and pertinent information to back up any type of recommendation we'd make.
Okay, I have a couple more questions.
Councillor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, and thank you, Mr. Matheson, for being here and answering council's questions tonight. From reviewing the letter specifically, I'm pulling specifically at the area that indicates, to be most effective, the facilitation process must have the engagement of all municipalities. Jumping a few lines ahead, we believe full participation in this process is the best opportunity for the township to advocate for its own interests and optimize outcomes for its constituents. So from there, can you please confirm whether the facilitation process will provide all necessary results and information well in advance of the September 30th date that was indicated? I do recognize the importance of having all relevant information available to ensure that the Township of Springwater can make the most informed decisions possible. I know that's something that many of us have advocated for at this table, to have all information available. Understanding September 30th is not that long from now. Council only meets so many times. So my, I wouldn't say it's a concern, but my question would just be, can we confirm that the facilitation process will garner all of the necessary information that is underway currently well in advance of that September 30th date? Thank you.
Yes, our intent will be to give all parties an opportunity to review our work prior to our recommendation being submitted. That's why it's important that we make sure that everyone wants to continue to be part of the process, so that we can sit down and lay out a work chart and a timeline that allow us to do so. And that's why it's important for us to send a letter last week asking to ensure that we do have the opportunity, or earlier this week, I guess, to ensure that we have the opportunity to continue to have dialogue. That's why when we received the geranium letter, Mr. Schelling from my office immediately reached out to set up a meeting with them, so that we can make sure that we get their information into our fact finding, and we can start to work on it and review it. It's only when we can get all the information and understand who all the parties are and make sure that everyone's at the table, it'll be most effective for all outcomes to be reviewed.
Councillor Alexander.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. So further to Councillor Garwood's point, I was surprised to see the September 30th date, given that knowing how long it does take these consultants' reports to usually come in, as well as disseminating the information, and specifically the piece about public consultation, which is oh so important, and understanding that public consultation during summer months is usually not recommended, in that we get less engagement because people are traveling and whatnot. Is there a specific reason that the province or whomever feels the need to rush this through, which is a very important matter, to hit a September 30th date, which I'm not sure why we would have that type of timeline in place. I'm just wondering why the date.
There are a number of reasons. One is, it doesn't mean that the minister will make a decision on the 1st of October. It will mean that situation and anything that we put forward will be considered. It has to go through a process at the Ministry of Municipal Affairs. If there was an argument to be made, and we're open to the discussion on why that date needs to be moved, we're open to it. We are not time bound per se, but we do have files that we work on over time, and we consider moving them forward. The other reason is that there is a boundary adjustment. We do want to make sure we leave lots of time that if there is a boundary adjustment that would take effect prior to municipal elections in 2026, that we would have enough time to make any of those adjustments with regard to voters lists and other considerations that would be relevant.
Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. So when I read the letter, and I was pleased to see that you were looking at priorities such as the creation of housing and opportunities for employment for the broader region. All along, I have really pushed for a regional approach with our County of Simcoe and with our neighboring Oro-Medonte counterparts. And so if the regional needs can be met and satisfied without a boundary adjustment as demonstrated by our stakeholders' documents potentially, or studies that have been provided to you, is that a consideration then there would not be a requirement for a boundary adjustment?
I will say that all relevant information will be reviewed. It will be taken into consideration, and the recommendation will reflect the best interests of the provincial priorities, the member municipalities, and the communities in the long term.
Deputy Correll?
Thank you. I do have a couple more questions, actually three. Mr. Matheson, if you could help me out here. They speak to shovel-ready lands, and I guess I'd like to know more about what that actually means, like shovel-ready lands, because obviously the expansion lands are not shovel-ready either. However, I would like to know what that actually means, and in respect of that, when do shovel-ready lands come into development? As being identified as shovel-ready lands, what would that entail to actually bring them into development? Time frame.
Shovel-ready lands is a term used to describe lands that can be or are already serviced and can be serviced by logical extensions of existing capacity that already are in the system. So is there a sewer that is a half a kilometer away that with extension and timeline could bring on land sooner than going through Class EAs and developing a whole new wastewater water system? What lands are most cost effective in doing so and allow us to meet the priorities of not only residential lands, but also the employment lands? And that is considered as you look at timelines. You bring cost of servicing into consideration, the amount of land that can be developed, what does the cost per acre work out to? All those types of considerations come forward through those types of discussions around shovel-ready. There is not a timeline. No one ever says that shovel-ready lands mean that they have to be online in 12 months versus 18. That is just really, you have to look at the whole process of another piece of land that might look like it's more advantageous, but it's 5 years out by the time you do all the pieces. And then you have to look at who controls the land. Is it to have access to municipal servicing that's easily done? Or is there a legal process to buy or acquire land to build a wastewater facility, a pump station, any of those types of pieces? So it's a little bit more complex to put a timeline to it than just actually a date or a specific amount of months.
Thank you. And that certainly aligns with what the next phase of the Hempson report is to be looking at as far as capacities and capabilities and whatnot. My next question is, there's been on more than one occasion some public statements made about manufacturers seeking to build a 100,000 square foot manufacturing facility within the city of Barrie. I'm wondering if you, maybe through Mr. Schilling, have any idea, or if you're aware of any specific manufacturers or enterprises identified that have sought to build within the city of Barrie and they have not been accommodated to date. Would you be able to answer that question?
Very succinctly, no. Any of the work we do is covered in our agreements that we work with Invest Ontario on, and with economic development departments at various municipalities. So we gain data from them around those processes. Some at some point in time, they might be under non-disclosure agreements. I can personally say I'm not aware of any part of this. Mr. Schilling has had carriage of this file since June of 2024. I happen to be the chair or the facilitator for the entire department. Ultimately, I am responsible, and I will be working with Mr. Schilling on the second half of this project as we work towards a recommendation to the minister.
Perfect. And my last question, if you will bear with me. And this is something that came up at the last council meeting, I believe, where it was suggested to me that I should review the Municipal Act. So I did actually go back and have a peek at it. I also noted in the email from Mr. Schilling, the letter that it references section number 173. And I guess my question would be, has this process already taken place with the joint agreed land proposal as presented and outlined jointly by Mayor Coughlin and Mayor Nuttall? Or at what point should this section of the Municipal Act be considered to be set in motion? Or as I said, has it already been set in motion prior to today's meeting?
No, it has not been set in motion. Section 173 allows us, when there is a decision which is covered under the Municipal Act, whether it's made under strong mayor powers or by council as a whole, that then sets in place Section 173, enabling municipal affairs and housing staff and the provincial land development facilitators to start moving in that direction. That has not occurred, and it is not contemplated to occur at this time. We are trying to gain information so that we can put in place the best recommendations with all the data. I can tell you in communities across this province, St. Thomas is a good example with Central Elgin, when we get into these types of discussion, heightened awareness, concerns with regard to municipal boundaries and servicing and agreements becomes heightened. And we take very good care to make sure that we gain as much information as possible so our recommendations are robust, defensible, and recognize the best interests in the long term of not only provincial policy, but also the municipalities and the constituents involved. And that's what we're hoping to do here as we look at this facilitated discussion. And as I said, it started in June of 2024, and we're really heading to the second half of it now. And I am aware of Councillor Alexander's comments with regards to the timeline. I will take that back, but we are wanting to ensure that Springwater is a participant at the table. And we have had conversation, as I said, correspondence through the Landowners Association, and we have reached out and began to schedule a time so we can gain some information and knowledge from them.
Before I do go back to Deputy Cabral, is there any update on the Hempson report as to timeline, potential timeline when we can expect to see the third phase?
At this time, Your Worship, no.
Thank you. Deputy Cabral?
Thank you, Mr. Matheson. Just one more question with respect to the St. Thomas Elgin one. I did review that at length. I did see that there were some significant differences there.
Deputy Cabral, I'm just going to remind council that there is proprietary information and there is public information, and I don't know where you're going with that, but we did receive. Thank you.
Yes, I'm not going to get into propriety. This is information that was, basically in the newspaper and in the media. But what I'm saying is that the development of looking for that boundary adjustment in that particular case revolved around the province wanting to establish the automotive plant at that location, which is a little bit different than what we find ourselves in here. I just want to know if that is a reality. Like, that was different. There are some similarities, but that one was, I would suggest, driven by the province as opposed to merely talking about potential employment lands. That was for a specific purpose. So would you be able to just speak to that and affirm or suggest that it wasn't the case? That's all.
There are high growth areas of this province, and it's not surprising that anyone in Simcoe County would know that the population influx in Simcoe, the investments the province is making in Simcoe County are significant. So it would be logical to assume that Simcoe is seen as a high growth area. St. Thomas Elgin was a high growth area because of a significant investment coming in. Simcoe is because of a significant investment possibly at Alliston, but further, it's a significant area of growth due to population growth and residential growth, and also looking at where do those people are employed if they're in that area so that we can remove congestion. It's always something we take into consideration when we look at these facilitated services. Are we putting something somewhere that becomes an island? Are we actually building something that reflects best practice in planning and that has sound engineering to back up the servicing? That's why there's 630 acres, I believe, of residential land, or sorry, hectares, and 300 hectares of employment lands we're looking at. So we try to make sure we have a balance that people can have jobs and community close to where they live.
Thank you.
Councillor Moore?
Thank you. And my apologies, Mr. Matheson, but we haven't had this opportunity before to ask these kinds of questions. So in your letter, you spoke about the hectares of land for employment and then residential, but those were significantly different numbers than what the city of Barrie has proposed to us. Was that you were looking at just developable property when you quoted those hectares? And sort of, if you could explain the difference, please.
I would say that when these processes start, some communities have their idea of what they need to meet their needs. We also then have the independent review of someone like Hempson, who comes in and collects multiple sources of data, looks at provincial trends, looks at population, looks at employment, looks at density, all those things, and they come back with a recommendation. There is no science between the two. You can have two different consultants, whether it's Watson or whether it's Hempson, depending on who they're retained by, and they can have varying thoughts on what is needed. In this case, what we try to do is look at both sources, look at their underlying assumptions, see how they marry up with provincial policy and the assumptions the province is using, and we try to thread a very fine needle between the two of them as we look at what is the potential for growth and what lands are affected by any of the facilitated decisions which we recommend to the minister.
Follow on.
Thank you. Mr. Matheson, I'm also going to ask you about the Little Lake piece. In the letter from Mr. Schelling, he has added in addition, the work will consider options for the long-term environmental preservation and conservancy of lands in the vicinity of Little Lake owned by the city of Barrie. That is a relatively new sort of development with these facilitated conversations. Wasn't part of the original conversations. So a little surprised to see it included in this letter. Can you sort of maybe explain the process on how that became part of this facilitated discussion?
I wish I could. I don't actually have the underlying information, so I'd be guessing, but I can undertake to try to provide you a further answer.
Deputy Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Just a last request more than anything else. Obviously, Mr. Schilling seems to be, and yourself, Mr. Matheson, I do appreciate it, open to dialogue and speaking to council. I'm just wondering if yourself and Mr. Schilling would be prepared and willing to meet with council again if requested to do so as a whole.
Absolutely. Our office is extremely transparent, very much available at any time to have dialogue with either municipal councils, with stakeholders, or landowners. We try our best effort to work through a process which provides the minister with the most robust information that he can make a sound decision on. At the end of the day, the only way we can do that is to have open dialogue. So I'd be more than happy to make both myself and Mr. Schelling available, or one of us, if it's scheduling permits or challenges us, to make sure that someone's there to have that conversation.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Not seeing anything further, Mr. Matheson, I can turn to staff if there's anything as we have this opportunity. Well, thank you very much for being here with us and answering our questions tonight.
Thank you, Your Worship. Have a good evening.
Thank you. So I do have this moved and seconded, council, and it's been read. Are there any further questions on this correspondence? All those in favor? And that has carried. At this time, we're going to take a quick 10-minute break. We're just, yeah, we'll return back at 8 o'clock. Thank you.
No county thing, because it was just a move.
All right, we will resume the meeting. Members of council, staff, and public, we will resume our meeting. May I have a mover and seconder for our action reports, please? Deputy Cabral and Councillor Garwood, that action reports items 10.2 through 10.7 be received and that recommendations contained therein be approved as presented. We have 10.2, we have 13 in Bertram Industrial Parkway, release of securities. 10.3, our special events bylaw update. 10.4, amendment to the short-term rental bylaw. 10.5 is an award of the Anton Mills Community Hall renovations. 10.6 is the Midhurst Street banners, and 10.7 is the ice resurfacer. At this time, Councillor, are there any that you wish to have pulled for redirection? Deputy Cabral? 10.3? Any others? Councillor Garwood?
When the time's right, I'd just like to comment on 10.5, please.
Are there any items to be pulled for redirection? Not seeing any comments on the remaining items. Councillor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. And before I will just highlight that item 10.5 is the award of the RFP for the Anton Mills Community Hall renovation. First, I wanted to thank Director Culver and Manager Dean for their work on this. A bit of backstory here, and of course, traditionally, Councillor Thompson would probably be the one that would be sitting up here and speaking to this matter, understanding that it is in the Anton Mills community. At the same time, this was a event or is an event that is forthcoming and a project that is of significant importance to the Cultural and Heritage Advisory Committee as well. So from the report, and again, I thought it was very well done, and in conversations with the Anton Mills Community Recreation Association, Director Culver and I have had some back and forth conversation over the past few days regarding this, and again, just more comment than anything. I first wanted to thank Director Culver for starting an open dialogue with the Anton Mills Community Recreation, or I should say continuing a open dialogue with the group, understanding that the Anton Mills CRA has a significant vested interest in the community hall that is located in the Anton Mills community there. And of course, the Anton Mills Community Recreation Association will be celebrating their 150th anniversary in September. And that is why there has been a concerted effort to ensure that while this project obviously is not being completed just for the sole purpose of that event, the goal is, and the true hope is, that the work will be completed prior to that mid-September date. Just a few items of mention specifically from the report, understanding that there has been a desire from the Anton Mills Community Recreation Association to see the facility returned as much as possible to the historic nature of that building, understanding it is a designated building in our municipality. Understanding there are limitations, flooring, etc., accessibility matters that have to be brought into consideration. But again, those have been brought forth to staff and to the Parks, Recreation, and Facilities Department. Again, items from various different lighting, flooring concerns, and selection, painting, the bell tower, etc. So I understand those conversations are ongoing right now. And I look forward to hearing positive feedback from staff as this project continues. Thank you.
Are there any additional comments on the remaining items? Not seeing any. All those in favor? That has carried, and we will turn to 10.3 and mover and seconder, please. Deputy Cabral and Councillor Alexander, that the report from the manager of the municipal law enforcement regarding the update to the special event bylaw dated June 4th be received, and that the proposed special events bylaw be presented for consideration at the June 18th regular meeting of council. I'll turn to Deputy Cabral.
Well, thank you, Mayor Coughlin. And I appreciate that. I did have conversation with MLEO Kellington, and it was actually a very good conversation. We shared quite a bit back and forth, and certainly some considerations for examples and scenarios that that were discussed. In addition to reflection on some of the other special events bylaws that are in place. So there were a few issues, one dealing with the amount of insurance that may be required, public versus private. There were also some considerations with respect to, maybe some things that should be listed that would be completely inappropriate, as opposed to just opening it up and then trying to determine, and also trying to nail down what might be considered a better definition of special event. Maybe attach a number to it. So there were a number of things. So I would respectfully requested that maybe we could defer this for today and not necessarily have it on the next agenda, but have ample opportunity to have some more fulsome discussion with MLEO Killington. And I might also add too that I did send correspondence to her when it came up last time, and there were some significant changes to the bylaw, but on review, I would like to see it be deferred one more time so that I might have opportunity and other members of council may have opportunity to have another look at it before it comes back before us again. My understanding is that Clerk Marshall has something prepared.
Before I go to Clerk Marshall, I did see Councillor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. And yes, I'd also like to thank Manager Kellington for a lengthy ongoing conversation that we've been having regarding this matter, and I appreciate you reaching out to council and seeking feedback and working through this. I am in agreement with the deputy mayor in regards to the deferral. I do think that this is, as all bylaws are significantly important, there is a heightened significance to this one, of course, as we want our community to be able to enjoy their own property, respectfully, of course, respecting one's neighbor. Again, some of the feedback that I had provided as well, which aligned with matters that were outlined in the report that Manager Kellington outlined, was significant, or specifically, sorry, I should clarify, around the regulations section where some municipalities have a specific number. Again, it could be 200, 300, 500. It could be rural versus urban in regards to the delineation regarding what one could have if they had a large farm property. And when I say had an event, sorry, I should clarify, based upon a comparison to my postage stamp of a backyard where I wouldn't be able to fit multiple hundreds of people in my property. So I think from reviewing some of those other municipalities, and I'm glad our bylaw team has done that forward thinking and put that information in the report to ensure that we have some of that comparison. Again, I won't sit here and go through all of my points, but I do think there is obviously an ample opportunity here. This bylaw has been around since 2009. So it is definitely not a new bylaw. Of course, it is an opportunity to improve it and to tighten up some of the language, provide or expand some of the definitions, and ensure that it works for residents moving forward. So I look forward to working with Manager Kellington on this. Thank you.
At this time, I will turn to Clerk Marshall to read the amendment and ask for a seconder.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. So I have that the motion now before council be referred back to staff to further review with council members on items such as the insurance amounts and adding a number of guests to the definition of special event. Just look to the deputy mayor. Would you like anything further added, or it's kind of broad to let you?
Yeah, I wouldn't nail it down to specifics because I have about 13 or 14 different points on here that, to be quite frank with you, after my discussion with Manager Killington, I didn't think, since we're going to defer it, that I would have to point them all out. But no, I think it's just fine to say what you've said and leave it open-ended. Thank you.
Thank you. And a seconder for the referral, please. Councillor Garwood. Council, all those in favor? And that has carried, and we are back to the main motion as amended. Oh, it's a referral. Don't have to do that. Thank you. And we'll now move on to our information reports. We have a mover and seconder for that, please. Councillor Moore and Councillor Fisher, that the report items listed herein be received for information. One is the report back on the Weeduct Adowin. Number 2 is the school bursary program update. 3 is the corporate credit card report. 4 is the corporate credit card report for March. 5 is the check register for March, 6 is the check register for April, and 7 is the fire protection grant. Counselor Moore?
Thank you. If we could speak to the Weeduke Dadwin report, please.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Director Culver, when I looked at the report, I saw that the conclusion was that that was a very expensive option and probably, not realistic. So the man gate, $750 to $1,500. Can you speak to that? Is that something that is more palatable? And I need to know about the timeline because you've got till July 31st. And is the plan then to put out another calendar? Thanks.
Director Culver?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I'll answer the second part of the question. I need you to probably repeat the first part of the question because I didn't quite catch it. But in terms of the timeframe for staff supporting the gate opening, that was referring to the 2-month timeframe that had been discussed at last council. And so rather than starting the next day after speaking with the proponents from the FOW, June 1st was the start date. So that takes us to the end of July. So that's the time frame explanation. And I'm sorry if you could repeat the first part of your question.
Counselor Moore?
Thank you. Just wondering, are you, with the man gate option, is that something that you would like to see us move forward with? And is that reasonable as an alternative?
Director Culver?
You could just bear with me for a minute. I'm trying to recall what the mandate option is within the report. Oh, man gate. Sorry. Thank you. Sorry, I misheard. Man gate. So it's not for me to determine whether it's feasible through you, your worship. I still recommend that it's quite unfeasible, given that it's a very loose project scope, and I can't guarantee those numbers. But that is a very high level estimate, and I guess it would be for council to determine whether they wanted to spend that money.
Counselor Moore?
So can we then, because we do have potentially maybe a couple of months, can we defer this back then to yourself to maybe make more concrete recommendations?
Through your worship, I can get some quotes for budget that would be more specific to the project. I will need a couple months to figure that out, though.
We will, on item number 1. Yeah, Deputy Corral.
Thank you very much. Just out of curiosity, through you, Mayor Coughlin, too, Director Culver. When you're talking about the $30,000, seeing as there's already a gate there, is this to simply open the gate that's there and close it? When we're talking about the 30,000, are we talking about a whole new gate with all the bells and whistles to it? Because my initial thoughts were that there'd be some kind of electronic mechanism that would allow the gates to be open, not necessarily open them for everybody that shows up. So there might be, and I notice you've got $2,500 there. Maybe it could be a little bit cheaper. So that was the only comment I wanted to make, was, if it's able to be locked and unlocked, and there's a sign there that says, hey, if you're here at 9 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock in the morning and the gate's locked, please open it. It's unlocked now, just someone's going to have to get out of the car and open it. That's all.
Director Culver?
So through you, Councilor, the parameters, the reason why it's a very high level quote is because the parameters are very, very loose. We don't own or operate the facility, so I really don't know what the expectations are. The major considerations that were taken into account were things like power supply. There really isn't one there that we'd be able to find. And our nearest estimate of how far we'd have to pull it, it puts a very high price tag on drawing power to the site. With solar as an option, you're either investing in a significant solar power system in order to move the weight of a gate, and a very significant inverter investment in order to be able to create the power to move the gate. So those are the key considerations. Beyond that, we're getting into ideas of, is it simply on a timer, which is a less expensive option. However, if it fails, no one would know because there's no way to signal that back to somebody because it's not really within a good cell range or communication range. If you want to have remote operation, that's a significant investment. And you're probably talking about investing in like a satellite Wi-Fi system, which again ups the price. So there's a lot of, without having real parameters, like if it was our facility and we were trying to, we would come with a project, so council would say, here's the parameters we want to follow, and then we would come back with a better pricing. But this was a very kind of wide open idea, and so I brought a very wide range of possibilities, but not really anything based on specific design.
Councillor Moore?
Thank you. And I remember at our last meeting, there was conversation around approaching the county to see if there would be some cooperation at that level. Do you know if that was communicated to them?
Thank you. And I did have a conversation with General Manager Elliott as to the existing conversations. I did ask for an email so that I could share that with all of council. As you know, the county has worked quite significantly with the Friends and capital investments like the parking lot and whatnot. The county at that time, when there was the request for operational assistance, the county said that they would not be able to provide operational assistance as they did not have the staff available to do it. So that was the agreement, that the Friends would be doing the opening and closing, and the county would continue to support them with capital investments. And that email is to come. We will pull this one to be referred. Is there any comments or questions on the remaining items? So council, I have it moved and seconded for items 2 through 7. Not seeing anything further. All those in favor? And that has carried. And we will now move on to the report, number 1, and I will have that referred, moved by Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Garwood, that the Weeduck Dadawin gates be referred back to staff. All those in favor? And that has carried. At this time, I will turn to Director Harvey for a development update.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, to you and the rest of council, as well as the public. I just wanted to bring to your attention that the Finley Mill reconstruction project is starting. There's a notice going to residents tomorrow outlining this is the work that's done from Finley Mill to Dorn, the full road reconstruction, storm sewer, road upgrades, and then from Dorn to Gill, and from Gill up to Midhurst Heights entrance, which is White Cedar Parkway now. Just wanted to let council know that this is going out. There's something being circulated to you as well of the notice of construction. Brief outline is it's starting next week. Substantial performance is to be done by November of this year. Surface works and boulevards the spring of 2026. That's sort of the time frame. There will be road closures to local traffic only, block by block. So specifically from Waddy to Belmont will be the first phase. There will be detour routes for the public, but there will be local traffic, obviously access to all the driveways, garbage collection, things like that. They're all in the notice and there's a project liaison that we've asked to be from the consultant to deal with residents' concerns. They're all on the notice. And I just thought it'd be best to let council be aware of this activity and this ongoing construction work that's going to be happening on Finley Mill. This is outside of the work that's being done currently related to the force main work. This is a separate contractor doing work, and it starts at Waddy and goes in the easterly direction to Dorn and then up to St. Vincent. So I just thought I'd let council know of that and let the public know at this time.
And we can now move on to our municipal updates. Oh, Councillor Moore.
Thank you. Is it a good time to ask about the progress being made on the fire hall?
I think I'll defer to a meeting. I know that our fire staff are very excited about it, and I'm sure they would like to share it themselves. So we can make a note for our next agenda.
Okay.
There were no items on tonight's agenda for fire. Municipal updates. Councillor Alexander.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I just want to let the council as well as the public know on June 14th, the Hillsdale Hillsdale CRA, we'll go with that one, is going to be hosting a Fire Smart community barbecue and info fair at the Hillsdale Community Park. It's a free barbecue. There'll be games, stories, ideas for Father's Day gifts, and a lot of just general information regarding fire safety, if you will. And it will be from 10 till 3 p.m. on June 14th. So if you're around, come on out.
Councillor Garwood?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Just a few items to mention. First off, I wanted to indicate that a week tomorrow, so June the 12th, the Elmville Farmers Market will be back once again for its 15th season, which is pretty exciting. The Elmville BIA, as many of you know, as I've talked about many times at this table, has taken on that initiative for the second straight year now, and has made some significant investments into improvements as the market progresses. So make sure to check that out at the Elmville Community Hall parking lot from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. every Thursday from June the 12th through September the 18th. The second item I wanted to indicate was the Elmville Ballpark Light the Park event, which is happening on June the 21st from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Members of council, I believe, have all received an invite in their calendars. Should you be able to attend, please do. And for the public, it'll be an excellent event hosted at 14 George Street, which is just behind the arena. If you want to see something funny, you can come see me play baseball that night. But it'll be a great evening with activities for the family, watch a couple ball games, and celebrate a very significant fundraising effort that, of course, the township was a significant partner in. And the other event, which I mentioned at our last meeting as well, on July the 1st, which again seems far away, but isn't. We only have one council meeting between now and then. Heritage Park will be celebrating its 25th anniversary. I actually have a motion on the agenda a bit later on to speak about that in more depth, as well as a Canada Day celebration from 1 to 4 p.m. in the afternoon at the park. Thank you.
Thank you. And back to you, Councillor Alexander.
Sorry for the confusion on this one. We weren't quite sure how we were going to do it. But I did just want to make comment and recognition to Manager Dean, who was a recipient of the SSCA Sustainability and Stewardship Award. Brianna, or Manager Dean, sorry, really has been instrumental in Springwater's climate action plan. She works closely with the SACA on a number of initiatives, including blue-green algae on Orr Lake. As the chair of the board, any meeting I'm on that includes staff, Brianna is always there, and she is always has all of the information about all the great things the township is doing with respect to our climate action plan, environmental awareness. It is much appreciated. I just wanted to say congratulations.
Councillor Garwood? And yes, congratulations. We'll clap.
And just to add on to what Councillor Alexander mentioned, I had the absolute privilege of attending that evening, and everyone in the room, when they found out that I was from Springwater, mentioned Manager Dean, the work that she does, and how lucky we are to have Manager Dean here representing our residents and obviously partnering with the SSCA, which we know is an incredible organization in our community. So congratulations, Manager Dean.
Not seeing anything further, I would like to just remind everyone that next week we have our Springwater Swing taking place at Orr Lake. I believe it's sold out. Actually, yes, it is. So that we're looking forward to that, looking forward to some good weather and raising some money for our community initiatives. And you will see that there's an office that is full of swag and bags right now. So thank you to our staff who have diligently made this happen for us, and all the hard work that's gone into it, and looking forward to a great event. We will now move on to our notices of motion, and I will turn to ask for this one's moved by Councillor Garwood, and it's artwork on the Community Elmville Hall. I'm looking for a seconder, please. Councillor Alexander, and I'll turn to Councillor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Whereas the Elmville Business Improvement Area, BIA, motioned to install artwork on the side of the Elmville Community Hall at their meeting on April 17th, 2025. And whereas the Elmville Community Hall is an important municipal facility with ongoing capital renewal needs as identified in the township's building condition assessment. And whereas the building condition assessment has outlined a series of time-oriented recommended repairs and upgrades required to maintain the safe accessibility and functionality of the facility, and whereas the western exterior of the Elmville Community Hall presents an opportunity for aesthetic enhancement through commissioned public artwork. Now therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to include in future reporting the feasibility and process for executing a commissioned artwork installation on the western exterior of the Elmville Community Hall, and that this direction be considered an extension of ongoing facility work plans and be scoped with recognition that current capital priorities shall take precedence and be addressed first, and that this process be undertaken in partnership with the Elmville BIA, who will deliver appropriate community engagement, a call to artists, artist selection, and funding sources, including external grants, community partnerships, and/or sponsorships, and that any planning related to the artwork installation be developed with the understanding that the broader work plan for this facility exceeds into 2026.
Thank you, Councillor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. So I think the motion is pretty self-explanatory, not looking for any financial assistance or support this evening. The BIA has had this earmarked as a desired project well before my time on the Elmville BIA, and really is seeking an endorsement of sorts to permit staff the opportunity to incorporate the art installation in staff's work plan as the capital project progresses. Again, there are significant works that will be required in the facility, roof, exterior works, etc., that of course are priority. This motion would simply include this matter as a part of any future reporting that comes to council.
Now open it for comments and questions. Councillor Moore.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Coughlin, to Councillor Garwood. I just have one question. I think it's 1, 2, 3. So paragraph 3. It threw me a little bit because it doesn't really relate to artwork on the side of a building, but speaks more to repairs and upgrades required to maintain the safety, accessibility, and functionality of the facility. Just curious why that got put in there.
Councillor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. So in conversation with our facilities team, it was agreed, and I strongly supported this initiative to ensure that we put a focus on the fact that the facility requires additional work, extensive work potentially, that is outside of this project. This project should not take the precedent. The also thought associated here is when we include this initiative in long-term planning, it is not just a piecemeal approach where we are putting something on the side of a facility and in 3 years we have to do significant work to that physical side of the building. Therefore, an expense that could have gone out the window from a BIA perspective. So the goal was to give council an understanding that this project is not just a artwork that is being installed on the side of the building. There are other matters at hand that need to be remedied first, understanding that this would be a very small portion of pending project information coming forward.
Councillor Moore.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Garwood. And I trust that you will figure this out. It remains a bit confusing and vague to me, but like I say, I trust that you will figure this out.
Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I noticed a new piece of artwork in Elmville the other day in the laneway there beside the Historical Palace Tavern. Anyway, it was pretty nice. I enjoyed looking at that. And I would like to congratulate the BIA on taking the lead here and actually making this very, very easy to support in that they're taking the lead role. And when it does go up, they're going to basically look after doing it all. And hopefully there won't be any taxpayer implications. So according to what I read, that's what it sure looks like. So kudos to the BIA for doing it. I think it's, I'll look forward to when, I don't know, 2026 or whenever it might happens. But that other piece that's in that laneway there, it's an eye catcher. It's a bird, and I don't know what kind of bird it is, but it's an eye catcher. It'd be nice to see them do the whole wall up that laneway there. So Anyway, good work for the BIA and thank you, Councillor Garwood, for bringing it forward.
Councillor Garwood?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, and thank you to both of the questions and comments that came forward. Understanding the Deputy Mayor knows this matter well, having previously sat on the BIA and understanding the group's desire to move this initiative forward. And yes, the conversations that have occurred around the BIA table has very much been the understanding that in initiatives like this, that the group feels would be while it is a visual add to the downtown core and the community, it supports obviously the same space where the farmers market is and where the community gathers. So sees this as a important tourism attraction and opportunity to enhance the space. So I thank the deputy mayor for the comments, and then just directing back to Councillor Moore's comments around the vagueness here. Respectfully, I look at it as the opposite. I think it's actually a significant motion understanding. I didn't want to just come forward today and say the BIA would like to put some art on the side of the wall and let's hope everything works out for the future, or also asking the taxpayer for a significant tax investment, which is not the case. Clearly it outlines here in the direction that the BIA would deliver the appropriate community engagement and manage the project obviously in collaboration with staff. So I'm pleased to see that there seems to be some support around the table regarding this motion, and I think the BIA will be grateful as well.
Councillor Moore?
Thank you. So Councillor Garwood, I support the motion, but my question is, are you asking then to have repairs done to the facility before the artwork goes on the wall? That's what I'm not clear on.
Councillor Garwood?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, and I'm glad to answer that. So no, Councillor Moore, the motion actually speaks to the opposite. So it speaks to the fact that the building condition assessment has outlined a series of time-oriented recommended repairs and upgrades required to maintain safe accessibility and functionality of the facility, and that, where does it say here? That the direction be considered an extension of ongoing facility work plans and be scoped with recognition that current capital priorities, i.e. the roof, etc., shall take precedence and be addressed first. So this is significantly secondary to the outlined work that staff have already identified that is required to ensure that the facility remains safe and accessible for the community. This will be done last.
I think I'm going to start answering just no. All right. So we do have this moved and seconded. Thank you for that. And council, all those in favor? And that has carried. We'll move on now to our notice of motion by Councillor Garwood, and this is for the donation for Canada Day Heritage Park 25th anniversary celebration. A seconder, please. Councillor Moore, and I will turn to Councillor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Whereas 25 years ago on Canada Day, the residents of Elmvale and the surrounding communities gathered to celebrate the grand opening of Heritage Park, an event that marked the beginning of a cherished community space dedicated to nature, music, and community events. And whereas in 2025, the Elmvale community will once again come together on Canada Day to commemorate the 25th anniversary of Heritage Park, celebrating a quarter century of community spirit and shared memories. And whereas the milestone event will serve as a tribute to the enduring legacy of Heritage Park as a gathering place for generations past, present, and future, now therefore be it resolved that the Council for the Township of Springwater hereby approves a contribution of $1,000 from the Ward 1 Councillors' discretionary funds and an additional $1,000 from the mayor's discretionary funds to support and enhance the 25th anniversary celebration of Heritage Park to be held on Canada Day in 2025.
Councillor Garwood?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Again, motion is pretty self-explanatory. I know I've spoken to this event 2 or 3 times so far at the council table. It was a significant importance over the past few years. I have been working with members of the community, in preparation for the 25th anniversary of Heritage Park. Understanding, I believe it was 2 years ago now, nearing, that council did approve the restoration and update to the Heritage Park welcome sign, which that project is soon to be underway, with the hope that it is completed before the July 1st date here, and the celebration. Of course, any event and any celebration does require funding. The funding would be utilized to ensure that live music and food is provided and available to members of the community by utilizing Springwater community groups and artisans, musicians, etc. And I'd like to also end, before any questions, I'd like to thank the mayor for also coming forward and contributing $1,000 from the mayor's discretionary fund to ensure that this event can happen.
Comments or questions on the event? Deputy Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I saw this and, I think the 25-year milestone is a pretty big deal. I don't know exactly what the discretionary funds are. You've indicated music and food in that. I guess my question would be that, do you think that $2,000 will suffice? Because if you don't, and you think it might go a little bit higher than that, I would be happy to $500, not $1,000, $500 from my discretionary fund. I just don't want to see you capped at 2,000 if you already know that you're going to be close to that number.
Yeah, I think that would make it 25 for the 25th from council. So there we are. Councillor Garwood.
Thank you. I won't belabor the point, but I think that would be greatly appreciated, Deputy Mayor Cabral. I appreciate you coming in on this and ensuring that all of us can support this event. So thank you for that.
And that has been added as a friendly amendment, so we don't have to do the acrobats there.
I do have to say one thing through you, Mayor Coughlin, to Director Bedard. I'm hoping there's sufficient funds in there to accommodate the $500. I'm pretty sure that there is, but.
And I think that rather than trying to log in, if there is discretion, I'm sure that if we can have it from another account, or I can do another, whichever. All right, council, all those in favor? And that has carried. So now we have a notice of motion regarding traffic ballers. I have this moved by Councillor Fisher and looking for a seconder, seconded by Councillor Garwood. That council approved the purchase of 5 sets of traffic ball. Oh, sorry, I'm stealing your thunder there. Councillor Fisher.
It's all right. All right, that the council approved the purchase of 5 sets of traffic bollards in the amount of $2,500 to be installed from May till October at the following locations: Doran Road, Midhurst, Pools Road, Midhurst, Belmont Crescent, Midhurst, and that the traffic bollards be funded from the existing road maintenance contracts operating budget. I'll just speak to it. The traffic bollards last year, I think they were a bit experimental in certain areas, and they certainly proved to do their job. And I know that we expanded it in a motion previously. There are certain areas where we do have longer roads in Midhurst, the 3 aforementioned roads. So I thought it best to expand upon it. And I also know that Councillor Garwood had a friendly amendment he wanted to quickly add on to it. So,
Councillor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. And before I do that, I did want to just show my support for the initiative, understanding Councillor Fisher and I initially brought this forward. And I believe back in 2024, maybe it was in 424, I know Councillor Moore as well added into that motion at the time. And I understand those 3 wards had the bollards, and I can't speak for other communities, but I can speak for the feedback I've received, and it's been positive. Of course, there's always room for adjustment, and sometimes we need to make some adjustments. Hence my amendment here. In conversation with the clerk's department, and again, not to go on too long here, because the original direction for both wards 1 and wards 5 did speak to specific locations, we are unable to move a bollard without going against council direction. So I would just like to propose a friendly amendment that we alter the location of the Simcoe Street and Elmvale bollard due to community feedback, and that a suitable permanent location be selected in consultation with staff moving forward.
And that's accepted as a friendly amendment. Deputy Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I just wanted to say that maybe the better approach would be to have some sort of an appendix where these could be listed and they could be changed by coming to council rather than every single time you want to move them. You might as well create an appendix. They can be added and deleted and moved around on the appendix. So that's just my only suggestion here as opposed to doing it this way all the time.
Councillor Fisher?
And actually, I did want to say, although we do need more bollards in those 3 locations, staff with what we do have, they're very good at selecting those locations. And even in the short time that we have had some representation, I think they've been very effective. Particularly, I'll give pools as an example. As you come in from Old Second, and a lot of people build speed as they come in. Having that there, also around the school, has been good, and around the curve on Belmont. I think what we'll do now is add one on the other end of the curve. But certainly, I think they've been effective, and the statistics that we saw before really do prove that. So,
Councillor Garwood?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, and really just adding on to that, a thank you to staff. I understand that this direction has put significant work onto our staff on this matter. So, Director Harvey, I'd like to please just share along our thanks to your team, understanding it's not a big team that is working on this matter, and there is complexities in each of our wards, each of these streets. I again couldn't speak to the specific locations that Councillor Fisher is referencing, but I know we put trust in one another to make those determinations. I will take ownership as to the Simcoe Street location. That was my mistake, not a staff mistake, but I thank your team.
Not seeing anything further. All those in favor? And that has carried. Councillor, are there any additional notices of motion? Councillor Moore?
Thank you. We can do this next time, but I would like to put a notice of motion out to move the council information packages from the Friday distribution to the agenda, the regular agendas. Thank you.
Any further notices of motion? Any items for future consideration? We'll now move on to our bylaws, and mover and seconder, please. Councillors Garwood and Deputy Cabral, that the bylaws listed herein be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. We have 5,407 ZB 2025-001-1446 Floss Road 4 East. We have 2025-048 short-term rental bylaw amendment, 2025-049 collective agreement bylaw. Any comments or questions? All those in favor? That is carried. And a mover and seconder for the confirmation bylaw, please. Councillors Moore and Fisher. That bylaw 2025-050 to confirm and adopt the proceedings of council at the regular meeting held on June 4th, 2025, listed here and be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. All those in favor? That is carried. And a mover and seconder to adjourn, please. Councillors Moore and Fisher, that the regular meeting of the Township of Springwater does now adjourn at 8:49 p.m. to meet again in regular meeting on June 18th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? And that has carried.